To welcome Miriam Cates to the show. Tory MP, co-chair of the New Conservatives, a member of the Education Select Committee, and rather interestingly also a former teacher. And Miriam Cates, I know you'll know as well as I do, has been a leading light in Parliament in terms of tackling the madness of what our kids are being taught in school, particularly gender ideology. So Miriam Cates, welcome to the show, and I'm sure you are as thrilled as I am that we're going to be seeing a ban on teaching of sex education to children aged under 9, but also an end to the teaching of the nonsense of, you know, there are 72 genders, you're born in the wrong body, and all that, frankly, blatantly political and dangerous ideology.
Yes, I'm really delighted with this news. Obviously, we haven't seen the statement in full yet. This is what's been, I don't know, leaked or trailed in the press. But if these reports are to be believed, this is very, very good news for children. And actually, I think full credit to the government for pushing back against what has been quite a strong tide. And it's a victory for common sense. And I think 10 or 15 or 20 years ago, it would have been widely accepted that we shouldn't be teaching under 9s, prepubescent children about sex, details about sexual relationships, and that we shouldn't be teaching contested beliefs as if they're fact to children. That was widely accepted. But we've all seen the madness that's ensued over the last 15 years.
Hold
but it's
on a
brilliant
minute.
News that the government's pushing back.
You're giving a lot more credit to the government than I do, because last 15 years... Now, I'm just going to Google it. Who has been in government for the last 15 years? Who is it? Oh, it's your lot.
Yes.
This has happened under a Tory watch, Miriam.
It has, and I don't dispute that, but it has also happened across the Western world, regardless of which government's been in power. So
it's worse in America, but it's the second worst is in our country.
Agreed, but and I'm not making excuses. You know that I, as much as anyone, have been pushing back against this.
You've been a hero.
But given what has happened and how difficult it has been, I do think the government does deserve some credit for pushing through with this. It was about a year ago, just over a year ago, that I raised this in Parliament on the basis of what parents had told me and what I'd seen for myself. The Prime Minister commissioned a review panel of independent experts over the summer. Yes, it's taken a while, but actually we've got to the point now where I think this is very, very sensible guidance.
And it's amazing how many people have got their heads in the sand on this stuff. I said Radio 4's flagship Today programme this morning. I managed to mistakenly listen for a few minutes and found them interviewing two head teachers. They managed to find two head teachers who didn't think this was an issue. Well, I don't know why they've got a problem with it then, because if it's not happening, you don't have to worry about a ban. But most parents are completely unaware of what their kids are being taught. And it's not just the gender ideology. Because where do they think these kids are getting it from? Is it all from YouTube? No. When you've got teachers saying there are 72 genders, and you know, and you're probably born in the wrong body if you behave as a tomboy, or if you're a bit camp, if you're a boy, and all of these things. This is dangerous, I would say blatantly homophobic stuff as well. But also some of the sex education, you know, teaching young children about oral sex. What the hell does any child in primary school need to be taught about oral sex for? Even in young secondary school as well, they need to be taught birds and the bees, you know, how babies are made, you know, contraception, boundaries, you know, who should and who shouldn't be allowed to touch you, what's reasonable. But the stuff that kids are being taught, the sexualisation of our children in schools is really scary.
That's right. And we've always thought, or at least certainly until recently, that adults should not be talking to children about concepts like sexual pleasure. And actually, that is a warning sign normally that's an inappropriate relationship. And I think we've had this kind of mission creep from sex education, which, as you said, should be about the birds and the bees, pregnancy, childbirth, you know, the law, what the law says, which of course very, very important, into this much more teaching about sexual ethics. And of course that's highly contested. There is no settled view in this country about sexual ethics, and we understand, as our country, we accept that schools are there to teach facts and information to children, not to teach philosophical beliefs, worldviews as if they're facts, because we don't have any consensus about those things, and those things are for parents to teach and not schools. But I think, you know, it's astonishing to me how the liberal media, the liberal Westminster media, are desperate to think that there isn't a problem here, that this isn't happening.
And that this is a culture war that's been started by the Tories against it, against something that's not a problem.
Exactly. And I've just done 2 back-to-back interviews before this where that's exactly the idea that's been pushed. This isn't a problem. This isn't happening. Why don't you want this to be taught to children? But, this is about child development. We don't teach 4-year-olds about nuclear physics, not just because they don't understand it, but also because it'll put them off physics for life. You don't teach 6-year-old about the Holocaust because it will traumatize them unnecessarily. That doesn't mean you shouldn't teach 16-year-olds about it, but the human brain develops very gradually from birth until the age of 25. This is just about what's appropriate and when. It is appropriate to teach 14-year-olds about contraception. It's not appropriate to teach a 9-year-old. It's that simple. We just need to listen to child development experts and forget about the politics behind this.
And that's it. The politics have been brought into the classroom. And again, any parent who speaks up or a kid who speaks up, they're the ones who are branded a bigot, told that they're in the wrong. We've had children who've been told they're going to be expelled because they refuse to sort of play along with this stuff. And we see the danger. This, again, it's all about being kind. There's nothing kind about, kids being put on puberty blockers, a gay child being told they're born in the wrong body and they should mutilate it. There's nothing kind about any of this. It's really cruel and horrible, and it's been playing with our children. Why do you think that it was allowed to happen for so long? Because I've tackled ministers whenever I get a moment privately with them, I bang on about this stuff to them. Why have you not tackled this? Why do you think they haven't? I
think a number of reasons. One of the problems was the compulsory RSE curriculum that was introduced, yes, by the Conservative government, sadly, in 2019. And the guidance for that was very, very confused. Some bits were fine, but other bits said things like teach the law and the facts about gender identity. Well, there is no law about gender identity. It's not defined in law, and there are no facts because, as you said, it's a contested belief.
No. Can I just say, this is the thing. I don't even like that phrase. It's not a contested belief. There's a tiny, tiny minority of this country who believe this complete and utter lie as an absolute travesty of the truth. There is no sort of 72 genders. People aren't born in the wrong body. No one is non-binary. None of this stuff exists. It's entirely a figment of people's imaginations. This is the equivalent of teaching children there may or may not be fairies at the bottom of the garden. Now, we teach religion in our schools, even though even people who are religious don't believe in other people's religion, and I'm an atheist and don't believe in any of it. But these are worldviews followed by hundreds of millions or even billions of people, and so it's useful for our children to know about it. This political ideology is on gender is just a political ideology, and it deserves to be taught, treated as like a sort of a strange, weird thing in the corner rather than an accepted, contested belief.
I think it's the same as things like religion and philosophy. There's a big difference between having a discussion with a class of educated 16-year-olds who've hopefully got 10 years of knowledge-based learning behind them and can have an educated critical discussion. There's a big difference between that, which is, I don't have a problem with that at all, and teaching a 6-year-old that you can change gender. And I think, again, people who contest this guidance are on the one hand saying that education is really important, but on the other hand that it shouldn't matter whether teachers teach this. Well, either children do absorb and believe everything their teachers say, or they don't. And if they don't, what's the point of education at all? But how can a 7-year-old distinguish between a teacher telling them in one lesson 12 times 12 is 144, the next lesson they tell them that boys that can become girls? A 7-year-old can't tell that's fact. Oh no, that's something I should be critical about. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. We can't just stop a load of nonsense on YouTube, but when children are taught by teachers in school, they take that as the fact.
It's a different thing.
Totally. Miriam Cates, I say thank you for all your work on this. I think we're beginning to climb out of the quagmire. God knows, though, what's going to happen when Labour get in, as it looks very likely according to the polls, because I think they'll bring all this madness back. But Miriam Cates, Tory MP, former teacher and member of the Education Select Committee, thank you for that. Quick word from Benedict Spence on this.
And as you say, the Labour Party are going to come in, they're going to rule for 5 years, and ultimately, as you said, a lot of this stuff has happened on the watch of the Conservative government. And Miriam Cates is right to say it's happened everywhere, but still, it did happen on their watch. And because of many other things that happened on their watch, they're now not going to be in power to enforce this sort of thing. So your children will be, again, left to the wolves should the incoming government decide to do that.
Really should have tackled this a bit sooner.